I go into Window and Gradient. So in the French version of Illustrator, it is Fenêtre, dégradé de couleur, Window Gradient. And then with the Gradient panel, I will be able to modify the gradient that I used. Okay, I take the Gradient panel by its name and click drag to make it a floatable palette, floatable panel. And you may increase the size of that panel by using the right bottom right corner of the palette. Okay, this is where you may convert the gradient from radial to linear. You may mirror the gradient by using this reverse gradient button. Okay, you may modify the colors of the gradient. I'll try with the middle color here. Double click. Maybe you don't have a middle color. Everybody has a middle color? If you don't have like this, you just have to click just below the gradient that is shown here, and it will put a swatch, and you double click on that swatch. Okay, if you put more than one swatch, you may remove them by taking them and click drag outside of the panel. Okay, so here I double click on the swatch and I may choose to put some colors here. Okay, I will choose to work in RGB instead of CMYK because I want bright colors. It is better. And you choose whatever color you want. Okay, same thing for the other swatches if you want. Good. You see, in radial mode, it is important to be able to inverse. Okay, I go back in linear mode. Good. It is possible to modify the transparency of the gradient. Now, in fact, if I want to modify the transparency of the gradient, I will modify the transparency of the background in the appearance panel. We didn't work yet in the appearance panel. That one. But here you are able still to modify the transparency of each of the color. So it's not global transparency for the gradient, but it is for each of the swatch. Okay, interesting. You are able to make some color transparent, and when they are not at 100% opacity, there's that little checkered here just below the swatch. Okay. Okay, you see the checkered pattern here, which shows that that color is not at 100% opacity. There is transparency. Even at 90%, it shows the checkered. Okay, I put it back at 100% opacity. I don't need transparency here on my gradient. You also have the gradient tool. This one. Use the gradient tool, and with the gradient tool, you may click and drag on the shape. Of course, it works best if you are in linear mode to understand what happens here. So don't use radial gradient. I think it will be better in linear here. Okay, if I zoom out and make a large click and drag, of course, I will only see a little part of the gradient, and some students may say, there's a problem with Illustrator, it doesn't show my gradient, but you see only a part of the gradient, of course, if you made a large drag and drop, click and drag, sorry. So, here's a little one, and it works. Okay. What you see here, this bar, It is the gradient annotator. You may hide it if you wish, but it is useful. In fact, it is an evolution of Illustrator. At some point, Illustrator showed that bar on the shapes, which use gradients. It is the same thing that what you see here in the gradient panel. And you may do everything we've done earlier, double-clicking on one color, changing the color. Okay? And yes. Okay, it's also possible to move the thing, but not really useful, I think. You have the gradient tool and you click and drag and it's okay. Okay, so it's always useful to put the gradients into the swatches panel of the document. So you may move the gradient from the toolbar into the gradient, the swatches panel, or I think if you take it here, it will work too. Okay, so now you have the gradient included inside of the swatches panel of the document, so you'll be able later to put it on other shapes. It doesn't change a thing at our circle here, but at least you'll be able to use it on other shapes.